Well, yeah, again, thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing the time. I guess starting off with our first question, which is a four-part question. What is your name? What are your pronouns? What's your ethnicity? And who are you?
Oh my goodness. I'm Filipino American, right? And my pronouns are he, his. And what are the other questions? My name is Ralph
Who
P.
are you?
Peña. Yes. And who am I? I am the artistic director of my theater company, which is an off-Broadway theater dedicated to developing and producing new Asian American plays.
Excellent. And you have a really interesting story. I was sort of reading up on your life story and how you came into this work and just what you've done over your career. And so, if I'm understanding correctly, you started off with founding like a street theater company in the Philippines. What went into the founding of that company? And I guess if you could sum up like what is the most impactful lesson that you learned from that experience, I'm sure there were many. What would it be for you?
I wasn't the only founder. There was
Hmm.
a bunch of us, and it was in response to martial law during the Marcos regime. And at that time, I joined this theater company at university, and we used the vaudeville form to put up street plays that sometimes were lightning plays, meaning you had your costume and props underneath your clothes, and you assembled in the middle of a plaza, and you did it, and you dispersed in 10 minutes before the cops could get to you. It was guerrilla theater, and then we also did workshops in the countrysides or in the provinces, and we organized communities. So the takeaway there is that theater is not just it's not just entertainment. It can be, but back then it was a social tool for organizing and for um, responding to fascism. Uh, it was wartime, and some of my colleagues died, and some were arrested. So it was very fraught, and but also really really instructive. That you don't really need money to make theater. You don't really need anything. You can make it, and what drives theater is passion more than anything. Of course, that doesn't exist in the United States. Um, Here, it's money. It's driven by money, and I had a little hard time reconciling that when I came here. But it's just there's certainly still very mission-driven activist theater in the United States, but it's not the same thing. Back there, you actually saw people listening to the play and then putting it into action, like organizing against the police or um, construction companies that were there to tear down their homes. I mean, it was immediate, and so I learned that. Uh, yeah, that I guess ideas and passions, right, are what animate theater the most. And if you have those, then I think you'll find a way to make it. That's what I learned.
And did you start off like as like an actor, writer, kind of just theater artist doing kind of everything in that setting,
Yeah,
or what was kind of your
I was
role?
a performer back then, but I also did a little bit of writing. Certainly did not do any directing. We built our own props. We did everything. And so it also exposed me to all the different facets of theater making. That I wasn't just an actor. I was also partially an organizer because we were doing this at the community. So I learned all those facets um, as part of being an artist. Yeah.
Yeah. And taking that knowledge, if I understand correctly, you split time growing up between the Philippines and California.
Yes.
Then, what was sort of your entry into theater in the United
Well,
States?
I got a phone call. My uncle, my dad's brother, was a colonel in the intelligence, and he asked me to come to his office, and he presented him my dossier. Like, here's what we see you doing. You're doing this. You're doing that. You're doing that. This is all illegal. And then he asked me to spy for the government and basically organize parties and take pictures of my friends and give them the photographs, which basically exactly, which was like what? So I told all my friends that they were asking me to do that, and I called my father in California and said, "This is what your brother's asking me to do." Basically, putting all my friends at risk, because now, and so within a week he sent me a ticket to fly to California just to escape that kind of situation, and I left. And I was very much involved in theater in the Philippines and activist and the politics, and suddenly I would land in Orange County. Um, and I was in shock for months. I could barely speak. Maybe I didn't speak. I could not reconcile where I had just been to the malls of Southern California. I just couldn't. And it was a shock. And it took me a while. I didn't do anything for maybe a year and a half. It took me a while to figure out what am I going to do here. And then eventually I started taking acting classes again, blah, 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 and then sort of got back into that groove. But I had to do a 180 basically and become an actor in New York, or no, in California, trying to look for work, learning how to audition, all that stuff. It was a big, big shock. And back then there was not that much work anyway.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That is a complete 180. And I think, so drawing back to your start in the Philippines, and if I'm pronouncing it correctly, the name of your theater group was Vaudeville, because it was
Vaudeville, yeah, that was the first group. That sort
yeah.
of more because it was infiltrated by agents.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we disbanded it, and then it became Periante, which is an offshoot of the word Peria, meaning carnival. So it became Periante after Vaudeville was disbanded. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah. And so taking sort of like the skill set and all of the things that you learned as a theater artist, kind of working with, I guess, less resources, I'm assuming, creating theater, I'm assuming, because there's so much to be learned there. Staging, how do you make things alive, come alive without, the resources of being able to just, bring in the lights and the sets and the costumes and stuff. How did you sort of take all that knowledge and that skills of being able to do it on your own and apply it to your theater making in the U.S.?
Well, I was in LA for a few years. I sort of got into the acting groove. I formed new sets of friends, right? Theater friends. That wasn't easy. I mean, I had to look for my tribe. I had to look for my tribe in the LA. And after that, I found them. We decided, a bunch of us, to audition and come to New York. And once I got to New York, I saw that it was basically the same groove that I needed to create. But now I'm starting from scratch again because I don't know anyone here. And I met a couple of friends who were with me in the Philippines, had also come to New York. And we just got together one evening and said, why don't we put up a play? And the skill sets that we learned, we made costumes out of newspaper, props out of whatever. That skill set allowed us to put up a production in New York with no money. And that production was invited to perform at the University of Pennsylvania. And once we saw that we had that ability, we all decided that we were going to form Mai. This was 1989. And we knew that we didn't need much. It was beg, steal, or borrow ethos. But we put up shows. And no one came. But eventually this sort of snowballed. No one knew us. No one helped us organize. No one taught us what to do to put up a theater company. All of that stuff we did on our own. We learned, we researched, we did all of them. We all had day jobs. But that's sort of what allowed us to be able to do this, because we had that experience of being able to do stuff with nothing. So that's how it was applied. And really the big lesson, and what I keep telling young kids this, is don't wait for others to solve your problems for you. or don't wait for white institutions basically to make your career, take charge of it.
Right.
That's not always very easy, but
Yeah.
um, but that's it. Actors, as you know, have the least agency in developing their careers. I mean, they are always waiting to get cast, right? And and I keep telling people you have to try to figure out how to break that cycle. And really, in theater, the only way to do that is to start your own company. That is easier said than done. However, if you want to be in charge of your art, that is the only way to go.
What do you think has been the key or the keys to success for Mayi, which is now, yeah, in what, 33 years now of
Yeah.
existence, one of the very few Asian American theaters in the United States. Um, what has been the keys to success for you to keep it going and for you to grow and keep producing the work that you want to produce?
You want to build a big table and invite everyone to that table and make sure that everyone feels invited, has agency in how this whole thing works, because you can't do it by yourself. So creating a family and a community is your very first task. And that's, again, easier said than done. We did it over many, 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 many years. And and then once you've got that going, you all have to figure out what stories do we want to tell, right? And that is also supremely important. And we have a bunch of writers, but what do you want to? How do you want to? How do you want to position New York, or how do you position Mayi in New York and differentiate it from the 400 other theater companies that are working here? Um, and then be a theater of color. Those are huge hurdles, and for us, it's really first you got to build your own community, because if you're relying on other, like the general public, New York public, to come to you in the beginning, that's not going to happen, and you're dead. And then the second, and probably equally important thing after building community, is you have to keep raising your creative bar, right? You can't do crap. You have to continually raise that bar and excel in execution. You know, um, um, you could be the most woke theater company in the world, right? But if you can't execute and you put up crap, it's not going anywhere. So part of what makes Mayu successful, or has allowed us to sort of continue this, is being in New York City, where there's a huge talent pool. That is absolutely critical to our longevity. That we've been able, like, to build that table, ask all these people to come in, and then execute.
And you mentioned a minute ago just about the importance of like creating your own work,
Mm-hmm.
especially being a BIPOC
Yeah.
artist. And you touched on that by saying like start your own theater
Yeah.
company. But what else? I mean, not so much like what else can you do, but what all goes into creating those opportunities, creating those spaces. What are some other things that can be done to sort of like get started from an artist who's kind of like, what do I
Right.
do?
Find your tribe. That's always,
Mm,
it's like who have the same, who shares your dreams, right? For me, in California, it was 4 or 5 actors who were not Asian. But we
mm,
all were so passionate about, this is what we're going to do. This is what we do. And every weekend we would go to someone's apartment or house and spend 48 hours doing improv work nonstop. Um, and you can't break. So for 48 hours, you're in an improv situation, right? And you kept doing it. But
yeah.
what it did was it sharpened your ability, right, for improvisation. But that also helps in playwriting, and doing your own work. So I was able to do that. And when I got here, again, I had to look for my tribe. And what we did, and most of us were actors, right? What we did was we went to churches and said, "Can we use your basement to rehearse?" And then we did that. And then we approached theaters, who were doing shows in New York, and I said, "Your dark Sunday nights and Monday nights. Can we use your stage?"
Mm.
And that's how we did this. It was all like improvising how to put together things for yourselves. And it took us about a year before we got a small grant. I think of $2,000. But that was that. We just did it, and then you'll find out all the other steps that you have to do. Uh, but first,
Yeah, the paperwork.
you have to find that your tribe. Who is going to take this journey with you? You can't all be actors. Someone has to mind the store, right? And usually, what happens with actor companies is they all want to perform, but you can't do that if you want to have a group. Somebody has to mind finding the money and producing and all that stuff. But it's something to figure out. But the very first thing is you really have to find your tribe.
And speaking of your group, are these artists that were like here in New York, the founding group of Mai? Are these artists that you're still working with today? Were these all AAPI artists?
They are all AAPI artists, but no, they've already peeled off. Not only one had stayed with us, and he became our executive director, Jorge Ortol, but he retired. So I think I'm the only one of the original ones actually still in the company. The rest are here, but they function as advisory board. But a lot of them left the theater, as is the case in it's just not for everyone, because it takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, for sure. But hey, y'all came up together and you sort of made it as one, and that's an incredible achievement. So Ma Yi, if I'm understanding correctly, is an ancient Chinese word for the Philippines. And if I understand correctly, it's sort of one of the goals or the visions of Ma Yi is to promote Pan-Asian arts, I guess, politics and theater. What else is sort of the mission behind Ma Yi? What keeps y'all going?
Well, first, Ma Yi is like an ancient Cantonese term meaning ants, because like, I don't know, 10th or 11th century, which is the earliest entry of the islands called Ma Yi in Chinese history. When the traders came, they saw a string of islands on the horizon that looked like little ants. And we use that name to say that there's culture in the Philippines before Spain arrived and named it after their king. But the mission of my theater company specifically is to create new works by AAPI writers for the American stage. That's extremely specific. But because what we want to do is create a body of work that everyone, AAPI actors, designers, directors, can do. When I started, the big complaint was there were no Asian American plays. There was David Henry Wang and Philip Khan Gatanda. A few others, but that was it.
Yeah.
That was it. I'm trying to think of some. Valina
Very few.
There were not a lot. And so when we said, why don't you cast us? It's like, we don't have the plays. So what we did was, okay, let's create the plays. And so we started a lab that has 34, now 40 Asian American playwrights in it. And they started generating work. And then, then now here are the plays. And we have the actors, and there's no reason for you to do it. But that's really why we did it. Because we needed to create a canon of a literary canon of Asian American plays. So nobody will ever say, where are the plays?
Right.
That's why we did it. That's our mission.
Yeah. Can't say that there's no plays out there to make. What in the looking back on your career, what would you say you're most proud of? That could be going back to your beginnings, or in terms of the founding of Ma Yi.
I don't know that I don't know. I guess helping to find this theater company is certainly very satisfying. But what I know is that I am like a very short piece of a very long thread, and I have this much, and there's going to be more behind me. So I'm happy to be this much and concentrate on that much because that's what I can do during this lifetime. And that's sort of what it is. Whatever that is, that's I guess that's what I'm most that little bit of hopefully having moved this community forward in American theater. That's probably it's very little, you know. And many other people have done it before me. Will do it after me, but sort of being part of that um, legacy, you know, of
Right.
that history, being part of it is huge for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I wanted to ask you specifically about the show that I saw a couple of months back, which was once I always say it wrong, Once Upon a Korean Time, not Once Upon a Time in Korea, which was a Mai production, the first one I had seen. Daniel K. Isaac was the playwright behind this. Incredible play, enjoyed it so much. And I was there on the day that we had the talk back. Speaking of anti-AAPI violence, which was very informative, I think, for everybody in the audience. And so I did want to ask you, what can creating theater and creating art, especially for us in this time, do to counter the forces of hate that are essentially coming for our communities right now?
Well, those forces of hate have always been there, and it takes many different forms. Um, there are obstacles in our paths, right, to realizing ourselves as artists. So they've always been there. What Trump has done is unleash that and make it all right to publicly do this, um,
Right.
and attack people. That's what has happened. But our role as artists is to create opportunities for dialogue amongst all peoples, not just our community, but because safety is a concern of all communities and not just ours. We started doing our anti-Asian violence forums because we were we realized that especially our women and older women are so scared of what's happening that we wanted to start providing resources like de-escalation training, et cetera, connect them with organizations that will help them do that, provide transportations for people that need to go home. Um, that's why we did it, but also um, I think that it's harder for people to punch you in the face if they see you as human. And that's what art and theater can do and should do. Um, so it's important to be sort of a conduit to create dialogue for everybody in the city. It can't just be us. And so that's sort of what we're trying to do, you know. And theater is able to do that because you can invite multiple people to attend your shows and maybe not hit them on the head with these things, right? But get them to see Asian Americans as people too.
And what kinds of works are y'all planning to do in the future? So, like, why was Once Upon a Korean Time chosen in this particular time, and what can we look for in the near future?
I choose plays not because of their content. I choose plays because of the playwright. So I get
Okay.
behind the writer and not the product, right? The person is who I support. So if Daniel had written another play, that's the play that we would have done. And the same thing with all the other plays that we've done. It's I'm supporting the writer and their work, not picking plays that I like. Uh, we are next working on, well, we have a co-production with MCC called Wolf Play that will begin previews next week, I believe, at MCC Theater. And then
Oh, nice.
we are planning um, a week-long celebration or something to coincide with Here Lies Love on Broadway. Um,
Hmm.
but I think you might have frozen. Did you freeze? Oh no,
Um,
no.
should be okay.
Something for Here Lies Here Lies Love, Broadway, and then we are now collaborating with La Jolla Playhouse in San Diego to do Sumo, which is a play on sumo about sumo wrestling. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's
Oh, so y'all have also done a lot of work outside of New York, or is this
no, we have
sort of a new
is
expansion?
also part of the new thing is that we're trying to build a national footprint. So,
Right.
um, you know, in New York, you're sort of preaching to the choir, and in regionals, we're able to reach new audiences. You know,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, La Jolla seems like a great place to start. That's very exciting. When is that coming out? The play that you said?
August.
August. Okay. What is sort of your hope for AAPI artists and actors going forward? We have seen, I think, a lot of hopefully measurable changes in theater and film in the last decade. What's the hope going forward for
Just
us?
more of that. For for me, I want to focus on economics. Right, it's not just enough to keep to do these, like bring people in and sort of say, we have a diverse. It's important for Asian American AAPI folks to get paying jobs with living wages. That's what I want. That's what I want. Whether it's on Broadway doing something else, not even Asian American work, I just want them to earn a living as artists. You know, that first. Because
Yeah.
right now, uh, I loathe to try to lure people into this business where they're not going to make any money.
Right.
That's sort of crazy. It just crushes dreams, and I've seen that again and again and again and again. So I'm right now. It's like you hire us, you have to pay us living wages, and stop putting us in your basements. Pay us what you pay white folks. So that's
Yeah.
that's the goal.
The longevity is key, and you got to be able to pay rent.
That's right.
That is that is sage advice, certainly. And for you as artistic director of Ma Yi, what is next for you, personally and professionally? Continuing to push Ma Yi forward. Is there any continuing directing? Is there any I guess writing in your future? What do you predict
I
for
don't know.
yourself going
Don't
forward?
know anymore. I think I'll just keep on doing theater and stuff. But I mean,
Mhm.
at some point, I'm trying to look at international partnerships some more. I only have a few more years in me, so transition is also another, like who's going to take over. Um, and I want someone to take over and not necessarily do the same thing. Maybe blow up the whole model and try something else. But what I would
Mm.
like what I want is to have is to be able to support that person's risk taking um, with resources, right? So I'm not handing like an empty shell to someone else. So that's sort of what it is for me, to to make this organization healthy enough to take on new leadership and maybe change course and sort of not die trying.
Right, and that might involve business considerations, artistic considerations,
Yeah,
going into sort of that
we have
transition.
funders right now, so if whoever's going to take over, I have to start introducing these ideas, over the next few years because it's not going to happen overnight.
Right,
That they are also behind this new direction that Mayi wants to take.
gotcha.
Yeah.
And just so I can hear it repeated again, it's kind of slipped my mind. What does the upcoming season hold for you, in terms of the plays the shows that you're all going to do?
Well, we have a Wolf Play opening shortly at MCC Theater in Midtown,
Hmm.
and then we are doing a fair, so to speak, to be a companion to Here Lies Love on Broadway, and then we're doing Sumo about sumo wrestling at La Jolla in August.
I want to thank you so much for your time today. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing as many of those as possible. If the theater gods allow me to. But yeah, how do we get in touch with you on social media, website? How do we get in touch and interact with Mai?
We are on Facebook as Mayi Theater Company, and we have an Instagram account, and we have a Twitter account, all under my theater company. And then I'm on Facebook, Ralph B. Peña. And then we have a website, www.ma-yitheatre.org.